Hello and welcome to Mind Your Mind podcast, the podcast where we talk about the mind, heart, life, universe, everything and nothing at all. Today, we are leaning into one of those everything and nothing kinds of questions. What if raising thoughtful human beings, kind human beings, starts not with what we teach them to know, but what we encourage them to wonder? That is a thought that has been echoing in my mind ever since I had the chance to attend Katie Trowbridge's TEDx talk. She is an educator, a speaker, and the founder of Curiosity2Create, a space where children are invited to think deeply, ask boldly, and connect through empathy. I'm so excited that she has joined us today for this session. And of course, I have Ozan with me, ready to explore curiosity, creativity, and compassion, and how deeply they are all connected. So let's begin.
I'm excited.
Welcome, Katie, first of all. And tell us about yourself, how you discovered and entered this, and about your story, how your curiosity led to this project.
Absolutely. So thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I was raised in a very conservative household where questioning and being curious was okay to a certain point. So it was okay to be curious, but as long as you were curious in the same way as the household. And you agreed with what everyone else believed. And so for this rebellious person, that was kind of a difficult way to think. So I liked to buck the system. I like to be a little bit of a disruptor, and be the kind of person that pushed everybody's buttons, as my father would say, and questioned everything. Like, why are we thinking this way? Why are we worshiping this way? Why are we believing this? To a point where it would get a little annoying. I understand. Even my teachers would tell me to stop asking so many questions, but I really was curious and I wanted to know. But as I grew up and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, which was another one of those big questions that hangs over a lot of people's heads, of what's your purpose? What do you want to do with life? Why are you here? I struggled with finding a path, finding a major in college, and just kind of did everything from nursing to equine sciences to, I mean, I was all over the place, and just kept taking literature courses because I loved English and I loved reading. So when I got out of college, eventually, I just kept taking everything and anything I could. I went into marketing. Everyone said I would be a teacher, and I said, "There's no way, no way I'm going to be a teacher. Absolutely not." And I went into marketing and I loved that because I loved the creativity of it. I loved the connection of it, going out and meeting people and working with clients. But a mission statement came across my desk that said, our mission, I was working in banking at that time, our mission is to help our stakeholders become more profitable. And I thought, oh, that's not my mission. That's not why I get up early in the morning and work late at night, dropping my daughter off at daycare. That is not my mission. So I started really, again, questioning, right? Why am I doing this? What is my purpose? And all those people in the back who had said, you'd be a great teacher. I thought, well, maybe they're right. So I went back and I worked full time, went to school full time, raised my daughter and my newborn son at that point, and became a teacher and never looked back. Loved it. Loved it, loved it. They were all right. All those people who were telling me what to do, even though I don't want to admit that. And eventually, and I started that in 1999, eventually started to see, though, in my classroom, a real dip in questioning and curiosity and connection. And what once was a very vital hub of students who were really engaged in their learning became this hub of like, disengagement. They were kind of coming and going. And, people love to equate it to COVID, and I say it was happening way before then. Some people love to blame cell phones. There's a lot of things we could blame, but the fact is it happened. So again, I kind of did my curiosity and my creative thinking and dove into what's going on and found out that we really were lacking this ability to think for ourselves, to be curious, and that people were not connecting anymore. I mean, even like now over Zoom, the three of us are still connecting, right? We're connecting even through this podcast to people. There's this, but so many people are feeling isolated. So many people aren't thinking for themselves. So many people are depending on either Google or because we're sitting at home, we're not. There was this, and the students were the same way. They were even though they were sitting in class, they weren't talking to each other.
Right.
It was the strangest thing that was happening. So I really dug into that and found out, okay, I got to change the way I teach. I got to change the way that I'm doing assignments. And I just figured this is something that really needs to be done and needs to be fixed. And so I started in my classroom, and then I started teaching other teachers how to do it. And now I have this amazing nonprofit where that's all we do. I try to raise awareness on what's going on.
Lovely, lovely. And that's so inspirational, actually, because, you said that you started with disruption, with rebel. And of course, when a child asks, why does this have to be this way? Why are we leaving these people out? Or why is it so partial? They are not just being inquisitive, they are really nudging at the edges of the system. And that is the foundation of deep thinking and empathy as we will venture into it. You said that you have come across of course, I'm sure you've come across so many children in your life now. When you think of a curious child, what exactly do you see? How do you know that this person has the potential to explore more, or be curious to a level that they can start thinking deeply? What does it look like when empathy begins to take root through wonder?
I love that question. Because here's the thing. We see it almost immediately in children. I mean, think about if you've been surrounded by any child, the why. Why is it this way? Why is it that way? What is this? How does this work? Right? Those questions that sometimes we're like, stop asking. So, right? Just, especially if you're in a long car ride with one. You're like, oh my gosh, let's play. My parents used to say, let's play the quiet game. Let's see who can stay silent the longest. I always lost. I always lost. Always. Because you just like, please stop asking, please stop talking. That curiosity and that sense of wonder, like just I want to know, why is this guy blue? Why is this bug flying? Why, right? We start saying, and then you fill a classroom with 30 of kindergartners, right? And you have, oh my gosh, one teacher who has, they say a child can ask up to 250 to 300 questions a day, right? You're going to be like, oh my gosh, stop, just stop. So you see their eyes light up. You just see the energy and the sense of like, I'm so excited, tell me why, right? But then we say, enough, stop. And it starts to kill their spirit. And so they think, oh, I have to stop. I have to be quiet. I have to stop asking. And that sense of wonder starts to disappear. And so we have to not allow that to happen so that we can continue that, oh my gosh, this is so exciting, kind of wonder and excitement and light in their eyes. That has to stick. And you can see it in people, and the rebellion starts, right? But we have to keep that rebellion, that disruptor, we have to allow that to keep going and funnel it in a way that is a productive, meaningful, relevant way, right? So that we're not killing the spirit of it, but funneling it so that sense of wonder, because here's the thing, the empathy then comes in, like you mentioned, right? Because what it is our sense of caring and our sense of connection. So Let me give you a super simple example. When we started this conversation earlier, you asked me how my week was. How are you, Katie? How was your week? Right? It could be now I could say, and I think I did, my week was great. It was busy. Right? We typically say to each other, how are you? Fine. Are we really?
Are we
Right
really
now,
asking it?
are you really fine? Like we could say, and part of it is, are we going to get into it? Do you really want to know how my week was? You know what I mean? Um, but there's also that point of, I could say my week was great. It was fine. It was busy. But then there's a point of, I could also say to you, how was your week?
Mhm.
Right? That's where the empathy starts to take place. Many of us don't do that because we're not curious, we're not listening, and we're not connecting. And that's what's happening is that I'm good, I'm great, I'm fine, great, okay, bye-bye. And then because we're passing each other in the hallway, we're passing each other in the street, in the grocery line, but we're not truly curious and connecting. We're just skirting by.
Right. Also, because we are so afraid of taking a pause in life.
It's
We
a
don't
risk.
want to stop for anyone.
Mm-mm.
I was thinking actually we kind of are even if we are curious, I think it's become such a like a social norm to for example when you ask how are you, especially in U.S. culture, like American culture, like they don't really ask how are you, like even if you want to share anything, you don't share anything. So you just like this is just how it is. So you just accept it. So you might be curious. I think like curiosity really comes naturally, but the children are taught to act in a certain way. They behave in a certain way because culture, religion, everything on top of it, how they should do, how they should shut up, and then they're given an iPad, like, okay, just stop playing with this thing, and then they're like, okay, this is how I should act. So when someone asks, how am I should just say, fine, I just move on because that's just what I should do, right?
Totally with you on that. Actually, I was just thinking that maybe because as parents, as teachers, and as upbringers of the children, we value discipline more than curiosity. We value knowledge more than curiosity. Uh, how do we have that perspective, and how can we really change that perspective?
I think one of the things is we have to understand those are connected. Knowledge is curiosity. Discipline is curiosity. Like those are all connected. They're not separate, right?
Mhm.
Because a child is asking a question does not mean they're being disrespectful. It does not mean they are being defiant. They just truly are wondering. And the best thing we can do as adults in their lives is answer the question. And I think that that's one of the biggest distinctions for adults is to understand, is a child being defiant or are they truly wondering? I mean, obviously, and you can usually tell that by their tone, by their stature, by if they're really being cruel in their questioning or are they really wondering. And I think that we have to make sure that as parents and as adults, we are distinguishing those two, right?
Mhm.
So that we're not separating knowledge and curiosity. We're not separating because it's all connected.
True, true. And I think as being so close to the children, we know them so well. I mean, we have either brought them in this world, or we are related to them, or we are meeting them every day. So you know you know your child the best, and you know when the child is actually really curious. And I think we can say this for all children very safely, that children in general are curious, because uh, it's only we start filtering our questions only when we start growing up and maturing.
Mm-hmm.
When we are very at a very nascent stage, all of us have very original and uh, I would say just pure questions, because we are exploring everything. That's
Right.
so wonderful.
Well, and I think sometimes too, as an adult and as parents, we have come into our own in a way we know what we believe. So therefore, we're trying to mold our children to believe what we believe. And I understand that as a parent and as a grandparent and as an educator and a leader, I understand that. But all that's going to create is a society that believes whatever anybody tells us to believe. And we're not going to question authority. We're not going to question what really are the facts, what really is it. So we want, and I think that's important. And it's how I raised a lot of my children. And even in my classroom is, here are all these different perspectives. This might be my perspective, and this is why I believe what I believe, but here are other perspectives. So it's up to you to decide based on who you are and what you think is best. I'm here to answer any questions you have. I want to encourage you to look at all these different perspectives, because that's what truly inspires someone to be a deep thinker, to be curious and creative and critical thinker. So that also, too, to a point of, if I meet someone who thinks differently, I can engage in a meaningful conversation with them. If I don't know anything else and I'm not curious and I don't know how to ask questions, then I'm going to have that single-mindedness that's just, it's going to hurt us all as a society. And it's not going to allow me to grow in my curiosity, because all I know is A, and I haven't been able to experience B, C, and D, and E, and maybe even Z, right? Because I haven't learned all that. I haven't asked questions because I haven't been allowed to.
Can you just like describe everything wrong with some education systems? Like I'm thinking of my country. My education system was like, you live in a specific country. I'm from Turkey. So you obviously learned whole history from Turkish side. And like everybody else's enemy. Yeah, they're so good and they were so bad. They're the villains. And also the religion comes into play, right? And like these are like, it's considered even rude sometimes to actually talk about other ones. Like it's equal. So it's always like creates some sort of separation. There's us, the right way, and everything else is wrong. So the kids are growing like that. So in the end, no matter how educated they are, they can do masters, PhD, they can know a lot of things about STEM. But in the end, they still look at the other person weirdly. And they are not asking questions about why they believe in such a thing.
Right. And see, now you have me curious. So now I want to go into, and I know that's not the point of this podcast, but now I want to go into, so what do they believe in Turkey, and what do they think about America, and but that's the curiosity, right? That's what we should be doing. So talk to me all about the history and why the us and them and that, and see how I get so excited like that. To me, that's what we should be doing. You're absolutely spot on with that.
Right. And it's like, when a child is curious about someone else's thoughts, someone else's feelings or experiences, they naturally take a step outside of themselves. And that's where, the whole empathy game begins. That's the beginning of empathy. That's the beginning of wonder. That's when they actually start noticing things and imagining others' life, others' inner world. And when we nurture this, when we encourage this, we kind of also put an end to assumptions and judgments that we make as adults. A curious mind asks why someone acted a certain way, or what might be going on behind the scenes for this person. That moment of pause, I would say, is where empathy begins.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that moment of pause. I think that is brilliant on your part. And I was just thinking when you were saying that about looking at a playground, or, and all the kids who are playing together from all different races, all different beliefs, all different, because they haven't been taught the us versus them, right? I mean, you think about all the different kids that are just playing. They're just playing. They're playing pretend. They're having a good time. They're being silly. They're playing tag. They're going down. You know what I mean? Like, that's what is the essence of what we have to continue to build, so that we all can play in the same sandbox, no matter who we are, what our beliefs are, what we are, just out because we're curious and we want to learn. And even though we may not agree, we may not have the same opinions, we're still curious and we're able to think in creative and critical ways. That's what's so vital. And we got to teach our children how to do that, so that when they grow into adults, they have the ability to problem solve together. That I'm not shutting you out because I disagree with you. It's more like I'm welcoming you in because I disagree with you. So I need to learn, and I need to make sure that I'm not being closed-minded, but that I am being empathetic, I'm being understanding, I'm welcoming in all these ideas so that together we may be able to be innovative and create this amazing new idea because you think of things differently. I think of things differently. We're so curious together.
You can learn so much from someone who has a completely different background, different knowledge, different beliefs, right?
Right. We have to be open to it.
If you're open to it.
Right. What I'm thinking right now is, we are talking about, how important, how foundational is curiosity, and how important it is to nurture it in children. But that's the job of adults who themselves were discouraged from thinking openly. So it's basically, this is a coaching of adults, not really children. When we allow our children to ask questions and explore, that's when the real change will begin. And this will only happen when adults who were judged or snubbed or shut down by their elders heal from that trauma.
We have to stop the cycle. We have
And
to stop the cycle.
what's the right way to stop the cycle? How do we begin?
One person at a time, one step at a time, one TED Talk at a time. You know what I mean? Like, that's the best way to do it. And that's why I'm on such a mission to do this. One podcast at a time, one article at a time. One, you know what I mean? Like, that's why I and my team, we just are so passionate about getting this message across. And I think, we always talk about, the top down, but I really believe it's a grassroots kind of thing, so that it is, the more we start educating, the more we start talking, the more we start modeling. I talk to teachers all the time. Look, you got to model it in your classroom, right? You want kids to celebrate failure, then you have to be the person who says, you know what? I totally failed last night. I tried to make this recipe and it flopped. Like, you have to be able to be open as an adult to say to the kids, you know what? I wonder, what if, right? So if we as adults are saying to our kids, I have a question, or, right, if we do that, and if we model, that's really an interesting perspective. I just heard this. I wonder what you guys think. Or I don't know if I agree with this, but what do you guys think? Or that's a great question. Let's research it. If we as adults are modeling it, then our kids are going to be like, oh, well, if Aunt so-and-so thinks that, or Grandma so-and-so thinks that, or my mom thinks that, or my dad thinks that, or my teacher thinks that, or then imagine what we can start doing. Right? But if all we're seeing are these adults who are like, nope, my way, only my way, this is right, black or white, then they're just going to see the same thing.
Totally with you on that. Actually, that's really powerful. And I think this podcast is also one of that initiatives.
I like that actually. Like so many people really see this like transactional, especially when we work with kids. Even the teachers, like it's like you just give some knowledge and that's all. Shut up, take it, and go. But I love how you said like you're actually a role model. You know, you like they will look up to you, so they will not see you like Wikipedia or something like that. In the end, they will see you as a human being, and they will be more curious to actually learn more about you and how you think. But when they ask a question you don't know, they will see that you're also curious about it. You're looking it up. How does it impact them rather than someone who's just telling them what is right and what is wrong and giving just pure information with nothing else?
Right. I remember when I was growing up, it was very much of like, this is what I believe and this is what I don't believe. Or there wasn't, I mean, if I misbehaved, it was, here's your punishment. It wasn't tell me why you misbehaved. You're still going to get the punishment, but I'm really curious as to why you made that decision, right? That to me is so key. Even in business, even in, like I would say to my students too, who like, I'm curious why you skipped my class. Like, I understand you ditched class today. I get it, but what I want to know is why. Why did you I could just give you detention. I could just make you sit in class, right? But I'm really curious as to why, because something was probably going on with that decision And a lot of times students would say, well, don't take it personally. Well, but I do, because you skipped my class. You could have skipped PE or something else, like, but why mine? Right? When I worked so hard to make it engaging. So I really want to know why. And then I would usually get to the heart of it. Well, I was having a really bad day, or I mean, like, okay, now I'm getting to the heart, right? Now I'm going to be able to have the empathy. Now I'm going to be able to understand why the student behaved the way the student did. To me, that's the core, right? So then, and I can say to my students, even like, man, I got to be honest with you, I didn't come to school yesterday because I was just not having it. I was having a really bad day. Like, because my students need to know that sometimes it's okay to take a mental health day, or sometimes it's okay to say, you know what, I'm not here today. How about you guys? I don't feel like being at school today. Do you guys feel like being at school today? Like, because when we are authentic and genuine with people around us, think about the connections that we can make. But if we keep saying that, no, everything's fine, everything's great, I'm good, my week was great, then we're not connecting, we're not being curious with each other. And then we just live in this false world.
And I think why we do this is because we are too scared to either open up or maybe listen to someone judging us. Maybe, when you ask the kid that, why didn't you attend my class yesterday? You are opening a door for him to even insult you.
Yep.
And you should be open to that.
Yep.
And that's when you are ready for it. That's when you really ask that question. So I think what really matters here is an adult being that open-minded, being that welcoming and inviting for anything that might just come their way, and also uh, also letting go of the fact that they did not have that liberty when they were children.
Right. Well, it's trust too, right? You
It's
have
trust.
to have a very welcoming, trusting persona about you, or like if as a teacher in your classroom or in your home or in your office, in your working environment, where you might insult me. I might be hurt. Your class is really boring, Trowbridge, and I hate it. Okay, great. Well, tell me why. Tell me more. That's one of my favorite things to say. Tell me more. So that I can really okay, if my class is boring you, man, I want to know why, and tell me how to fix it.
Yeah.
Because I want that we have to be open and willing to grow as adults. We're not perfect. We don't know everything. Like, we have to have that mindset, that growth mindset of we're never really done growing until we're in the grave. Right? We've always got to keep going. We've always got to keep fixing ourselves. And feedback is one of the best ways we can do that. Giving each other feedback. Here's what I think, in a loving, kind way. But you're right. We're afraid of judgment. And I hear that from teachers. I hear that from students. Like, why are you not opening up? Why are you not talking? I'm afraid I'm going to look stupid. I'm afraid I'm going to be judged. So that, again, is a respect, an openness, an environment we have to create where you're not stupid. We all feel that way. You're depressed. I get that way. You're anxious. I get that way. You have a fear of failure. So do I. You don't want to look stupid. Neither do I. Like,
right.
We all have that. So let's work on that together. Right. And then the person next to you goes, oh, you do get it. I do get it. So I'm curious. Tell me more. Right.
Yes. And the respect is so key here, because we as adults look at, we just, most of us have been trained in the way that if you are more in age, higher in age than me, you are automatically respectable. And I'm not letting go of that respect because I am elder to him or her. That is less of a respect, I would say, and more of ego talking.
Yes.
Because children look at everyone with the same eyes, and they are so pure, and that feedback is the most important which you get, because that is just unfiltered, raw feedback.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And we have to be okay with that. You almost have to have a little bit of tough skin, but I think you're absolutely right. You have to be like, okay, children say the darndest things. Like, you've heard that saying, and they're going to be honest and raw. They're going to say to you, oh, that outfit's ugly on you. Okay, thank you. My grandsons have said some of those things to me, and I'm, oh, okay, thank you. They're honest. They're brutal. I gotta
Well,
take
so
it.
many people won't say that, but
No. Well, especially when they're 7 or 8 years old, they're going to tell you that, but we have to be okay with that, but we have to model that and we have to love anyway. And I think that is very difficult in our society to do because we do that. And I think I mentioned that in my TED talk. We just do that. Like, I'm going to unfriend you. I'm done. We're not talking anymore. Instead of saying, thank you for the feedback, or that kind of hurt my feelings. Can we rephrase that in a little bit different way? But again, that's a skill you have to teach. You have to teach how to give good feedback. We have to teach how to be curious in a respectful way. And a skill we have to teach our elders of if someone's asking you a question, they're not being disrespectful. They're just curious and wondering. And it's okay to answer that in an honest way. And I've seen that a lot in my students where parents are, you will do this, you will do that. And so then what they do is they do much of what I did as a student and as a young person is I rebelled and I went the opposite way and I hid everything from my parents because I was told I had to be this way.
That's
And we
actually
don't want that
opposite
because
of
then
what they wanted for themselves. They wanted you to respect them, and now you do not have that same level of respect for them because they did not allow you to ask questions. So I think that that's so ironical that what we want from them by shutting them down will actually be achieved when you really let them open up.
right. Because we want independent, strong people, good citizens who think for themselves. Like, isn't that what we want our world to be full of? But yet if we shut that down, we don't allow that, then we're going to have a whole bunch of lemmings who just follow along with each other and agree with each other and don't express their minds and their opinions. And then we're going to fall into some very serious issues politically, in religion, and so many other ways of we're not expressing and then we're not innovating. And that's what's really scary. And that's where we've got to really make sure we are being those deep thinkers, those curious, creative, critical thinkers. Like, I'm really creative, but I'm also critical because I love all these ideas, but I also want to have that research and that analytical side to think, okay, so which one of these ideas really is the best idea? What really works? Right. And that's why we've got to make sure our world is full of that. And I'm afraid that right now our world is not full of that.
That's so important. I'm going to highlight this.
I love how you approach it actually, like how you approach your students as well. Like if I'm back to my education, there are like couple teachers which I still remember and I cherish, and those are the ones who are actually they showed their human side. They were vulnerable, and they asked me, as you said, like finding the root cause when something goes wrong, when there's some teacher that's acting very tough, and they're like, you do this, okay, I'm gonna fail you if you do it at the time. Then you are like, you either rebel or you go underneath. But if someone asks you and you see that they're actually genuine, they're not playing games with you, and you speak about it, it's also helping their self-awareness as well. When they were asking me, they were helping me understand myself, why I do certain things, why I skip classes. Because there's always a reason, possibly like you're helping them understand themselves, and it will lead them, with their self-awareness journey in the future. They know what to do. They will ask themselves the same question you were asking them, right?
Yep.
So it's like a whole progress for them.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why I'm taking some of what I do in education and bringing it into the leadership role. Because like you were saying, is that the adults need it, right? So we have a lot of leaders in our world and in our organizations who need to lead like those great teachers lead, right? So we need to bring that up into the leadership, even in business and organizations. So that's why I'm doing a lot of some of the speaking and things like that are going into leadership, because we've got, like you had said earlier, we've got to help the adults do it. So like you had said, like there's these teachers that you remember, we need to become the leaders that people remember, right? So that as leaders, we need to create office space that is the same way, that is welcoming, that is respectful, that allows employees to ask questions, that allows for empathy to happen. So that if you don't come into work, it's that same thing. Why did you not come into work? Are you doing okay? What can I do to help? What's going on with, right? It's not this is as a leader, you can only lead this way, because then you have staff that's not being innovative. So it goes from the classroom, it goes into the business world. It's those students are becoming adults who now don't think creatively and critically. And I'm curious. So we've got, it can't just stop in the classroom. It's got to go up to leadership as well.
Mhm.
It's a very nice correlation over there, actually. If you think,
Yeah, it's got it. That's why I'm working on a new book right now that talks about what leaders can learn from great teachers.
Okay. I'm sorry, I was actually looking at your background and there's such beautiful messages written there. Don't fit in, take a risk. I failed today, but that's okay.
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
so important and so simple.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think the one that you're looking at, the I failed today and that's okay, is the one that people love the most, because I think that is so important for us to grasp. That, failure has become such a 4-letter word, in our society, and especially with students. If I have to get an A, or I have to be the best I can be, I have to get into the best college, I have to get the best job, I have to have the best house, so that they will do whatever they can to achieve that. But what they don't understand is that failure is a part of that. Like, we
Right.
have to fail, right? We have to make mistakes, and we have to be okay with that and celebrate that in order to be the successful person we want to be. So when we screw up, when we mess up, when there's chaos and we fall down, I always think about one of my favorite analogies is when you're riding a bike, right? And you're teaching your child to ride a bike, you're teaching someone to ride a bike. And you know how you hold on the back of the bike and they're pedaling because you know that you're there. You know they have that security of you're there, you're holding the back of it, and they're pedaling, and then all of a sudden you let go without them knowing. And they're still pedaling, but then they look back and they see that you're not there anymore. And usually what happens is they start wiggling and they fall.
Yeah.
Right? Because all of a sudden they realize, but there's that split moment where they think, I'm doing this by myself. I'm on it. I'm doing it by myself. They're not there to support me. And then all of a sudden they go, oh, shoot, no one's there to support me. And they fall. Right? But you're there as the adult going, yeah, look at you. You did it. You failed. But you did it on your own, but you failed. Like, that's that cheerleader back there. And then the kid is like, wait a minute. Yes, I am on the ground. I fell off my bike, but for a split second, I was doing it on my own. So what do? They get back up. Now, you may have to help them for maybe another little, like, let me get you balanced, but you shouldn't have to hold on as long.
Yes.
Right? That's the point where you say, see, failure's okay. I'm still here to support you. I'm still here. I got you, but I got to let go at some point, and you may fall, but you failed. Great job. And we've got to be okay with that, because eventually now you're going to ride that bike and you're going to be great riding that bike, but you had to fall a couple times to be able to ride that bike. Right? But if we're not going, woohoo, great job, you failed, then they're going to say, forget it. I'm done. I'm not going to ride the bike anymore. I quit. Right?
Totally. And when we talk about failure, we also talk about failure in academics. When in our time, I remember when I was a kid, the toppers and the failures, it was like a caste system. The failures won't talk to the toppers and the toppers won't talk to the failures. And as kids, we had that notion, because it was so deeply ingrained in us by our teachers, by our parents, that, stay away from them. They don't really, they don't study. You keep studying. They are not studying. They are bad children.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that was such a negative advice coming from someone who you really look up to
Right.
every day. And now when we know that, failure is also glorious, it is the stepping stone to success. But we have just, we grew up with these quotes, not really going deep in them,
Right.
not really understanding them. We knew that failure is a stepping stone to success, but once you fail, that you are, you are in that pit. you will never be able to come out of it.
Right.
But now I think as adults, we have the job to really, really, really mean what we say and instill them in our children.
It's that sense of resilience.
Yes.
Right? Being resilient. Like you're gonna fall off that bike, but you got to get right back up, and you might fall down again, but you got to get right back up. You might fall down again, but it's that building that resilience of I can do this, and is it gonna hurt? Yeah. Could you break an arm? Yeah, my daughter did. She fell off her bike when she was young. She broke her arm, but put it in a cast. It heals. You get back on your bike, and that's hard, and that's building resilience. And that's teaching. And I'm going to go back to it's still being curious, right? So you still are being, so I'm going to go back to, so those kids that were the failure kids, right? I want to know why. I want to know more. Why were they put in that category? Why were they failing? What might we do to help them get out of that category? Right? But if we just put them, if we tag them and we label them, then they're going to start believing it themselves, and they're never going to be curious enough to get out of that cycle. Right. So that's why I get so afraid of labels, because as soon as you're labeled, you're going to start believing it in yourself. So I'm going to label you as a failure, then I'm going to believe I'm a failure, and I'm not going to get out of it because I'm not going to be curious enough. And if there's not a teacher there to say, why are these kids failing? Maybe they need a different way of learning. Maybe they need a different environment. Maybe right? Then, I mean, again, that goes back to the curious, deeper thinking, right? So why are they failing? Let's celebrate that failure, right? Because then those kids, and I've taught a lot of those kids who are the high achieving, super successful kids. And I've also taught the kids who are low and failing a lot. And a lot of times they're both incredibly smart. They just needed different ways to be taught.
Yes. And also, if your friend is failing in class, you don't see them as different or wrong or scary, because you're curious and you approach it as something to explore, to talk further, and show some empathy. So
yes,
it's the bridge between empathy, I would say. Curiosity, I would say, is the bridge between me and you.
Yes. Right. And it shouldn't be this wall. Right? This brick wall, just because you are in this category and I'm in that category. I love that. It's a bridge that should bring us. And again, it comes then down to, so tell me more. Let me, I want to know more about you. I want to know more about the way you think. I want to know more about the way you learn. I want to know more about the way you were raised. Like those kinds of things then allow us to build that bridge and connect. And that's where one of the things that I'm really big on too, is that we're so isolated in this world that we're not connecting because we're not listening to each other and we're not being curious. And so then when we do that, yes, that is one thing that COVID did, is it made us a little bit more isolated from each other. Right. But it's also allowed us to have things like this Zoom where we can connect, where we probably would never have met.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. But now we're connected, and we will be forever connected because of this podcast. And we're curious enough to ask each other connection. Right.
That was so beautiful, Katie. Thank you so much. Ozan, do you have any thoughts to wrap up?
No, I think we can on a
It'll take a while.
we can like to connect.
All the information.
Really, I was just like echoing also what we were speaking. So also this connection is so important. I was also reminded of my own high school friends and the school friends when we were saying we had the same system. So good ones, bad ones, whatever. But now in perspective, I connected so many of them on social media now, thanks to that. And I see them like some of them became musicians, some of them became really good actors, some of them were writing other books as well. Like they had so much personality and so much talent, and everybody had some hidden gems that we never realized because we were not connecting. Right. And that's the beauty of that message, I think. Like if we connect, everybody has something magical within them, right?
Yes. Absolutely. I love that. Yes, we all do. And that structure didn't allow us to. That's why we have to get rid of that structure.
Yeah. Before we close though, I would like to ask about more like what activities you do through Curiosity2Create and where people can find more about your work and how you can inspire them?
Yeah, absolutely. So Curiosity2Create's a nonprofit. And we have three main areas. One is we have an after school program for the little kiddos, K through 5, that helps them be curious and creative thinkers. We have children's books and a whole program for after school to help them really learn how to work together and connect. And so we've taken the Create method, which you see behind me as well. The Create method that is personified by all the little kids. So Charlie is our content curator, Riley is our risk taker. And so there are a bunch of kids that work together. And then we have the educators program, which is the deeper thinking, goes in and helps educators create environments within their curriculums, what they have to already do. And we come in and I have a couple books on it, help them take their curriculum. So this isn't a drop-in program. It takes their curriculum and infuses it with curiosity, creative, critical thinking, and connection. So how do you get your students, no matter what it is, K-12, higher ed, whatever it is you have to teach, math, science, English, PE, whatever, and how you make sure you're teaching those skills. And then I have the leadership training. So I help leaders make sure that they are also doing that in their leadership. So we have three different things, and we're all at curiosity2create.org. You can reach out on me on anything, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Take a look at my TED Talk, any of those kinds of things. I'm here. Like I said earlier, my whole goal is just to spread this message from the grassroots.
All right. So whoever is listening, just go Google.
Go Google.
Yeah, the links are down below, so you can check it out over there. But it was so lovely, Katie. You are just giving so much inspiration, and I hope everybody just takes away something from it. Like, they don't need to be a teacher in order to educate and inspire people to be curious, right? Anybody can do it, parents or even just friends. Like,
right.
Anybody can take away from it. And actually, I love also how you relate to leadership. And I think that deserves another episode alone as well.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Yes, I would love to do a sequel to this one.
I would love that. Please, anytime.
Thank you. That means so much. And I hope you really enjoyed being here talking to us. And because we really did.
It's been a delight. I love it. It's been great.
All right. So thank you so much, Katie, for gracing this episode. And we are going to release this soon. So, Ozan, I think we can just say goodbye to our listeners now.
Yes. Thank you very much for listening. Check the links below for learning more about Katie. And then, Katie, I hope to see you soon.
Oh, anytime.
Stay tuned.
Bye.